Hello, happy Saturday, and welcome to another book tag. Today, I'm going to do the contemporary romance reader tag. This is a fairly newer book tag that I found that when I was looking for some book tags to do. And this was created by Pretty Purple Polka Dots. I'll link her like original video down below. And I used to... When I started reading romance, I was very big into contemporary romance and like the Harlequins and Silhouettes. And then I kind of got away from it after I binged basically all of Jill Shalvis's backlist at the time. And then I got into paranormal romance and fantasy romance and historical romance. But I have recently, I would say, rediscovered contemporary romance. And have been reading a lot more of it in the past year and a half-ish than I normally did. And that's partly thanks to, my biggest influence is probably Shelby Taggart Reads. I'll post her Instagram down below. She has a booktube channel as well, but I feel like she's more active on Instagram. But she recommends and she mainly reads contemporary romance. And the ones that I've picked up from her that she's recommended have completely blown me out of the water for the most part. So she's like my go-to contemporary romance. At least for straight contemporary romance, because contemporary encompasses a lot of sub-genres under it, but we will just go from there. So I guess I should say, if you are new to my channel, hello, my name is Stacey, and this is the Reads of an Apple. I'm a fairly newer booktuber, but I have been doing book blogging, mostly for reviews, for the past couple years now, and I've really enjoyed it, and finally decided to move to booktube. So, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, but anyway, let's just get into it. So there are 11 questions. So we will go through it. So, what's the first contemporary romance you remember reading? It would have to be Jill Shalvis, and it would have to be her Simply Irresistible, which is the first book in her, oh my gosh, I just lost it. Lucky Harbor series. That's like her big contemporary romance series. I think there's like 12 books or something crazy in it. I have most of that series, but it's in the storage unit. But I can show you the first book in her newest series. So just look at the name, Jill Shalvis. I actually recently reread it. I got the ebook bind up version of it, and I forgot how much that I loved it, and now I kind of want to reread the whole series. But yeah, Jill Shalvis was probably not the first contemporary, or I'm 99% sure she's not the first contemporary romance I read, but she's the first I remember reading that I really, really loved. And my mom bought that for me for Christmas shortly after it came out. So I followed Lucky Harbor from get-go. And since then, Jill Shalvis has been an auto-buy author for me. So moving on. What is the last contemporary romance you read? That would be the Molly O'Hare, Hollywood Dreams. It was okay. I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm currently kind of going through Molly O'Hare's backlist, and I'm really enjoying her newer books. This was actually her debut novel, and it was okay, and I liked it. It was cute, but there were some things that I did struggle with it, so 3.5 stars. But that is the last contemporary romance I read. Who are your favorite contemporary romance authors? And I'm sitting on the floor because this bookshelf here is my contemporary romance bookshelf. It's also my anthology bookshelf. But, so Jill Shalvis has been one of my favorites for, as long as I can, since high school. I think is her first book came out when I was in high school, or I was like just starting college. But Jill Shalvis is an older one that I absolutely adore. And like I mentioned earlier, I kind of rediscovered contemporary. So I'll pull this one. Claire Kingsley. I first read her. I read Book of Boyfriends a couple of years ago, but then recently I picked up Unraveling Him from the Bailey's Brothers series for the Smart Women Read Romance exclusive Patreon review. And I was just like, why did I stop reading Claire Kingsley? So I binged this series and now I'm working my way through the Miles Brothers. I have not finished this. The last book in this series came out recently. It's sitting on my headboard right now because I still need to read it. But Claire Kingsley is definitely a favorite. A new favorite that I will praise to the ends of the earth is Elsie Silver. This is her debut book. This is the first book in the Gold Rush Ranch series, which just wrapped up in March. I think the fourth and final book came out, and she's a newer author. This came out in 2020. I love it. I will read anything Elsie Silver writes. I adore these books. This was my favorite contemporary romance that I read last year. Those are probably the big three. And then if I want to be super silly, I'm going to say Juliet Cross, because this is her first published contemporary. She does have a contemporary romance that's on Kindle Vella right now called Hearts Adrift. And before, she had published paranormal romance and like sci-fi romance, I guess technically it would be. Or no, fantasy, not sci-fi. But this is her first contemporary. She also has, and this was through Smarty Pants Romance, this is the second book in the Green Valley Heroes series, which is set in the same town as Penny Reed's Winston Brothers. But she has Bright White Wildfire, which I think is supposed to come out in May. I haven't heard anything otherwise about that. And that's her first in the self-published. She is an indie author. And because this is officially published and it is her first contemporary romance, and I'll read anything Juliet writes, so I'm going to just throw her in there, even though she doesn't write strictly contemporary. But she officially has published contemporary now, so I'm going to count it as like a bonus. Okay. Number 4. Who are your favorite underrated contemporary romance authors? Well, obviously, I feel like Claire Kingsley is really hyped. I feel like the people who have read Elsie Silver love Elsie Silver, but I haven't seen too many people in the BookTube community read her, so I definitely want more people to read her. And I do say Jill Shalvis, but only because I know a lot of romance readers are hesitant in picking her up because she can do more women's fiction. So she had the Lucky Harbor series, and then she did a Heartbreaker Bay series, which I have right here. I'll grab the last book in it. Heartbreaker Bay. This was set in San Francisco, and this is a romance series. And then she wrote, I think it's called the Wildstone Sisters, but she was very upfront, at least in her newsletter, that was going to be a women's fiction romance. Or a women's fiction, mostly women's fiction. I think they do have romantic elements, but it was coming out as women's fiction. And then when she announced the Sunrise Cove series, which this is the first book for, she said in her newsletter that this was going back into romance. So I don't know. My signed bookplate's coming out. So I don't know. I haven't read it yet, so I can't tell you for sure by myself, but I had this pre-ordered. This came out, I want to say, in January of this year. And then the second book in the series is set to come out in like May or June, I want to say, sometime this like early summer. And I already have that pre-ordered as well because I love Jill Shalvis, and with it going back to romance, I do not have the Wildstone sisters or the Wildstone series, whatever it is, the women's fiction one in paperback. I do have the ebooks. Eventually I will try to get them in paperback, but I think I'm going to go for the used ones just because I'm not a big women's fiction reader. But I do want to own every book that Jill Shalvis has written. For underrated others, let me just kind of take a peek here. I would say I'm going to bring up Leah Riley. I love Leah Riley. This is Mr. Hockey. This is the first book in her Hellions Angels series. This is my favorite hockey romance series. The first two books are my favorite hockey romances, and I absolutely love these books. I reread Mr. Hockey every year. I don't always reread Head Coach when I read it when I reread this one, but this last year I did. The third book is Virgin Territory. Yeah, Virgin Territory. And I liked this one, just not as much as these ones. Eventually I feel like I should reread it to see what I think about it now, but I wasn't as much in love with it. So definitely Leah Riley. I have read a couple of her other contemporary romances and I liked them. I gave them like 4 or 5 stars, but Mr. Hockey just, it hits me in all the freaking feels, and they're my favorite hockey romances for sure. I'm going to pull this out. Well, I would say if we're talking about underrated, I'm going to do one more. And I'm going to say Jackie Lau. Jackie Lau is one of my favorite contemporary authors. I absolutely love her. This is her first traditionally published romance that came out last year, Do Not Fall in Love. And I love her. I have a couple of her indie published books as well, if I can grab them. So like here's this one. And she is one of my favorite authors. She is an Asian author. She is a Canadian author. And a lot of her books, they've got nerdy aspects. A lot of her characters will be like crafters, or will have family members that are crafters. They're steamy, and she isn't afraid to her world feels so real because her books will have it'll incorporate toys, or it'll incorporate, there was one book I read, I feel like it was one of her novellas, I feel like. Maybe in the Baldwin Village series, but maybe not. I don't know. But in one of her books, the heroine very rarely finds completion during sexy times. And she doesn't receive enjoyment from actual penetration. And so there's a lot of very real, very frank conversations between, and it's not this book, I haven't read this one yet, but there's a lot of really good frank conversations between her and her boyfriend at the time on helping her to find enjoyment in their bedroom play. And it's little things like that I absolutely love. Her humor's great. She will make you hungry because she is a foodie herself. Her Instagram makes me jealous. I want to live in Canada where she lives. She posts the most amazing freaking donuts and drinks and food. And I get hungry every time I read one of her books because she sets it in Toronto a lot of the times where there's a lot of good restaurants and fusion restaurants. So definitely Jackie Lau is another favorite, and more people need to talk about her. I love her books. And a lot of her books are also on the shorter side, so you can get through them really quickly. Okay, we'll move on. I'm sure there's more people I can talk about, but number 6, what are your favorite and least favorite contemporary romance tropes? Well, I mean, I guess a lot of the normal favorites, there's only one bed, forced proximity. My absolute favorite trope is wrong sibling, which is a little harder to make work in contemporary, but I have read some contemporaries that do make it work. One is Katie Roberts' Wrong, Bad, Right Brother? Or Right, no. Yeah, Wrong, Bad, Right Guy. And this is, she goes to seduce her boss. And so she goes into his like apartment above the art gallery that he owns. And she plans on like seducing him and trying to get out of the friend zone. And she doesn't realize that his brother is staying in town. And so she ends up crawling into his brother's bed and seducing his brother. And they don't go all the way. But then at that point, his brother is just trying to convince her that, yeah, there's something more there. And I love it. And it's my favorite trope. But you know, the normal, I love small town romances. That's usually what I go towards when it comes to contemporary romance. There's small town or sport romances, I guess. It's more of a subgenre though, and maybe not necessarily a trope. I do have to say, I am kind of picky with my hockey romances though, because I am a huge hockey fan. I root for the Colorado Avalanche. Go Avs go. They're doing really well this season, and hopefully we're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. But so I get very picky with my hockey romances, because I'm such a fan. And I like watching a lot of other sports too, but because I'm so entrenched in hockey, and sometimes I feel like, not that there aren't there, but I feel like with hockey, there's less of the stereotypical jock attitude from hockey players than there are that you see from like football and basketball players. And I just feel like hockey is its own beast. Not that there aren't those players out there, but I feel like in general, when you see hockey players in the wild, so to speak, or when you see like behind the scenes clips of like, and yeah, some of it could be PR stuff, but the fact that they're willing to do some of the things that they do just for fun behind the scenes or for fun videos for Instagram, I don't know. Hockey players, I feel like just aren't the stereotypical jock bros. And so I get kind of frustrated when they make them seem like the jock bros from other sports. And even then, I feel like jock bros for football and basketball and baseball and hockey, like they all, even though they're all like jock bros, they're jock bros in different ways. And sometimes, I guess what my main issue is I'll get a jock bro from a different sport forced into being a hockey player. And I'm just like, that's not how hockey is. That's not how hockey players generally are. Just saying. But anyway, I'll stop my rant about hockey romances. My least favorite tropes. I'm not a big fan of enemies to lovers. It has to be done really, really well. And my biggest issue is when they are so mean to their heroine, the heroine, one, isn't going to believe them that it's coming from them secretly liking her. Like, what? Or, I mean, it doesn't have to be male, female. Or there's no real reason for them to be mean. There's just not. And then there's also levels of means. They're teasing and like bullying, and the heroine doesn't necessarily understand where it's coming from, so she just gets annoyed and frustrated. Is it that kind of enemies? Or are they saying really incredibly soul deep hurtful things to them? Like, you gotta give me the grovel. And at that point, there is not the fun sexual tension there for me, because mean, hurtful things were said, and that's not sexy. I'm sorry, it's not. But that's probably one of my least favorites. I'm not the biggest fan of second chance romance as well. I don't know. And I know people can change, but for a lot of second chance romances that I've read, I feel like either what caused the breakup in the first place wasn't a good enough reason, or they were just being stupid and not communicating, which is another whole thing, is the miscommunication trope is absolutely utterly annoying. But, and like, there are times it works, and there are times an author can make it work. But overall, just talk to each other. If I feel like the entire book could have been solved by a 2-minute conversation that isn't actually an issue, that's annoying. But anyway. All right, we're going to keep going because I'm just rambling on here. What is your favorite contemporary romance setting? I mean, small towns. I love small towns. I also like set on a ranch or set on a farm. I enjoy those, which are a lot of the times are also small town. I also enjoy, like, if it's something like, speaking of Jill Shalvis's Heartbreaker Bays, like, this is set in San Francisco, which is not a small town, but everyone is in the same, like, apartment building or little area, and they all go to, like, it's like a small friend group, and they all go to the restaurant bar that's like next to the apartment building that they're at. So I just like the small town feeling and the close-knit friend groups and family groups. And you see that more in, like, small town or small town feeling books. Yeah, I'd have to say, yep, that. Okay, what was your favorite contemporary romance you read last year? Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. So good. So freaking good. I have a video that you can see. It's one of the first videos I uploaded where last year I created brackets to figure out my favorite books of the year. And then I had 3 separate brackets. I had contemporary, I had historical, and then I combined fantasy, sci-fi, and paranormal. And then I filmed a clip of me kind of talking through my thoughts and feelings when I filled out the bracket, and Off to the Races won. The second, it was against this and Single Dad Seeks Juliet by Max Monroe. Although the third book in the series was also in the bracket, and I'm excited to do another bracket this year for sure. So yeah, favorite last year. What are your top 3 all-time favorite contemporary romance reads? Ooh. I mean, I gotta put Off to the Races in there. It was just so good. Of all time? Oh, gosh. That's hard. It's hard because it's of all time, and I have such a gap in my contemporary romance reading journey. So I would probably say the second is Unraveling Him by Claire Kingsley. This book really hit me in a lot of ways, and I immediately purchased this before I read any of the other books in this series, and this book really, really touched me. So I would have to say that one. And then I would have to say one of the Jill Shalvises in the Lucky Harbor series. I don't remember the name, so I'll pop it up here. But I'll say this one. What are your most anticipated contemporary romance releases this year? Ooh, boy. I know for sure, like I already mentioned, Juliet Cross's Bright Like Wildfire. She had mentioned last I heard it was supposed to be out sometime in May. So I'm excited for that, but I'm just going to grab my planner here because I have most of them in here. So I'm just going to kind of look and see what I have marked as pre-ordered or that I have here. What do we got? Those are all fantasy and paranormal, historical. Let's see. Okay, Secrets We Whisper in the Moonlight by Rachel Higginson. Last I knew, this was set to come out May 24th. This is the second book in her Decisions in Durham series, which is a spinoff from her Opposites Attract series. I'm super excited for that one. I also know, I want to say in August, the last book in Jackie Lau's Cider Bar Sisters series comes out. But that's in August. And so let me look through June real quick. Let me glance. Okay. The second book in Jill Shalvis's book, the Sunrise Cove series, The Friendship Pact, is out June 14th. So I'm excited for that one. June 21st, Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley. Okay, we'll just move on here. I'm just gonna do a couple ones and not go too much into it. That's a historical. Okay, I have a bunch of historicals coming out in July that I'm really interested. But we aren't talking historicals. Okay, and then we are in August. So yeah, in August we have Love on the Brain by Allie Hazelwood. This is the follow-up to Love Hypothesis. So I'm super excited for that one. Oh, Meowdy? What do you think, kitty face? Oh, Meowdy? My goodness. September 20th is Finding Jean Kelly by Tori Jean. This is a new author. I saw Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life post about it. It has, I think, endometriosis representation. I might be wrong, but I'm super excited for that. The follow-up to Don't Fall in Love by Jackie Lau is out October 25th. That's the stand-up groomsman. Obviously, all of these are subject to change. The fourth book in JT Gessinger's dark romance, which technically dark romance is contemporary romance, Brutal Vows, comes out. Well, it was supposed to come out in June, but now it's coming out April 28th. So it got moved up quite a bit. I'm excited for that one. Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. This is the third book in the Spoiler Alert series. Comes out November 29th. So that's pretty far out there. And I think that's it, because now I'm in December and I don't have too many books set for December that I have marked down. So, and then there's also the fifth book in the Cider Bar Sisters series. I didn't see it in my planner, so I didn't get it written down in there yet, but I think it's August that it comes out. And I'm excited for that. That's the wrap up, and that's the character that I've been most excited for from the sisters. So those are all the contemporary romances I'm excited for now. Obviously, a lot of the contemporary authors that I've started to follow here recently are indie authors, so they don't announce too far in advance when their books are coming out. So I know that's not it for the rest of the year, but that's at least some. I'll list them all down below. I would bother putting up things, but I kind of went through them so quickly, so I'm just going to list them all down below so you can see them, and I'll link to the Goodreads page. And then the last one is tag some contemporary romance readers to take this tag, and I'm just going to tag whoever's watching this. And feel free to let me know if you do it, and I'll share it and all that. And I'm excited to see more since this is a newer tag, and a lot of the people I follow will read contemporary, but it's not their main thing on BookTube. I'm certainly interested to see what your questions would be, or what your answers to these questions would be. I'll link, like I said before, I link all the Pretty Purple Polka Dots video, which is the creator of this tag, and then I'll also put all the questions down below. And since she is here screaming, say hi. Now you're quiet because I'm giving you attention. This is Cheese, if you have not met her yet. She is my 20-year-old baby kitten, and I've had her since she was weeks old. Huh. See, she just wanted attention. She's running around screaming. Yeah. Did you think I was going to put you down? She got very upset there. Alrighty, so I'm going to wrap this up. Please like and subscribe if you do this reader tag as well. Let me know so I can watch it, and I'm excited to see what your thoughts are. Feel free to let me know if you have a super favorite contemporary author that I did not mention. Pop them down below so I can add them to my to try list, because I'm excited to kind of expand my contemporary romance author list. And I'm really digging a lot of the indie contemporary authors. It's where it's at, I feel like, for today's book publishing. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.